you guys. Welcome back to the show. Welcome back to another episode of Jessie is sick as a dog, but she's recording a podcast. I am on the up and up, and I am resting. I promise I'm resting, but 2023 is the year of podcast consistency. Tuesday, Thursdays, we're dropping new episodes. I love podcasting. I struggle so much to be consistent on TikTok and Instagram and, all of the social platforms, but I love podcasting. I feel like I just get to share my heart and express things with context, and it's just there's so much more value on a podcast, in my opinion. So thanks for being a part of the podcast crew. And today we're going to talk about where to start, the very first step to take in your food freedom intuitive eating journey, the most important step to take, one of the very first steps, and what that is and why if you don't take this step, none of the other steps in the process really matter. So it's going to be a juicy little episode, but I just want to apologize if my nasally voice is irritating the shit out of you. I know it can be so annoying to listen to people's voice when it sounds annoying. So I hope I'm not making your skin crawl. I promise the context and the meat of the episode is really good information. So thanks for bearing with me. Also, if you have not yet signed up for my VIP email list, I said podcasting was my favorite thing to do, and it is. But to be able to connect back and forth, you know what I would love to do? I would love to do a live podcast recording at some point and be able to hang out with you in a room and have banter back and forth and get to see your expression and answer your questions. Like, I would probably be scared shitless, but it would be so fun. I've seen some podcasters do that, and I would love to do that, even though, again, I would probably be scared shitless and sweating profusely because I was so nervous, but that would be amazing. But one step that we can take right now to create more connection between each other and a way that I plan to add so much more value and provide exclusive tips and tricks and tools and techniques as it relates to healing binge and emotional overeating. And I just want to share some of my favorite buys of the month is through my VIP email list. So if you go to www.jessie, Jessi, Jean.com/VIP. You can sign up for my VIP email list. It's totally free. Would love to have you a part of my email gang. I'm so excited to start that. I'm going to share stuff with my email crew because I don't know, it feels just like the safest way to communicate. I'm going to share stuff on there that I'm not going to share on the podcast, that I'm not going to share on Instagram, TikTok. So if you want to be a part of that little crew, would love to have you there. I promise I won't send annoying emails. I hate spam emails. That's not going to be my thing. So if you want to be a part of a really fun email list, then go to jessiejean.com/VIP. I'll put the link in the show notes for you as well. But let's get into the question of the day, and that is, what is the very first step to take in the food freedom intuitive eating journey? There is a lot of information on the web. There's a lot of information out there. There's a lot of different individuals and creators and therapists and nutritionists and mental health professionals and doctors and so many different people talking about healing binge and emotional overeating and body image challenges. And I love that. That's a beautiful thing to have so many different resources, but it can be overwhelming. And it's like, where do I even begin? Where do I even start? So where do we start when we're trying to find normalcy and balance in our relationship with food? If you are brand new to the world of intuitive eating, and maybe you stumbled upon my podcast from a TikTok video that you saw, or however you wound up here, if you're brand new to the world of intuitive eating and don't really understand what intuitive eating is, I'm going to give you a very quick, short synopsis. Basically, it's getting back to doing food the way your body was designed to do food, which is by listening to your body's hunger, fullness, and satiety cues and not having to be guided by all of these external things like macro counting, calorie counting, meal plans, point counting in order to have a balanced relationship with food. Just like our body sends us signals that it's time to go to the bathroom, and we listen to that instinctually and we go to the bathroom, and when our body kind of gives us that nudge, that's how we're designed to do food. Our body gives us these nudges of, oh, hey, you're hungry, it's time to eat. And then it sends us these signals of you're full, you're satisfied, it's time to stop. And if that seems like a totally foreign concept, it's likely because a number of factors, whether that's diet culture, whether that's having, a pattern of not listening to your body and relying on external things like macro tracking apps and meal plans, or ignoring your hunger and fullness cues. That might sound totally foreign to listen to your body. Well, intuitive eating is learning how to get back to listening to our body and being able to have a balanced relationship with food, an easy relationship with food that isn't wrapped up in being so neurotic. And intuitive eating is really about having more brain space, more mental real estate to do life, because we're not obsessing over how to do food, because we're trusting that our body has it. And I know that can seem very, very scary. And that's why, I have so many different podcasts, and I have a course, and I have so many different resources on how we get back to that point. But essentially, that's what intuitive eating is. It's about listening to our body. And that first step, where do we even begin when we feel so turned around backwards and we feel so disconnected from our body? Well, the very first step that we have to take in order to get to this place with food where it's more easy, it's more effortless, it feels more intuitive, is we have to understand the importance of eating regularly, eating consistently, and making sure we're eating enough, eating adequately. Because if you're struggling to listen to your body's hunger, fullness, and satiety cues, but you're not eating regularly, you're not eating consistently, and you're not eating enough, it's really hard for our body to get into a consistent swing of things. It's hard for our hormones that control hunger, fullness, and satiety to balance out. We need to be eating consistently. And if you've gotten into the cycles or into the patterns of maybe it's calorie hoarding or macro hoarding during the day and saving it all for night, or you're doing something like, going a number of hours, or you're doing something like fasting, where you're going, hours on end or half a day on end because you're doing something like intermittent fasting. It's really hard for us to get in sync and get in flow with how the body was designed to work. We need to be eating every at least 3 to 4 hours. Sometimes it might, for those of you who are newer in this journey, eating even more regularly every 2 or 3 hours is ideal. We want to be able to balance blood sugar levels. We want to be able to balance energy levels. We want to be able to help support hormone balance, help support mood regulation. And so being able to get back in touch with our hunger, fullness, and satiety cues requires that we're first eating regularly, we're eating consistently, and we're making sure that we also are having meals that have a balance of protein, a balance of carbohydrates, a balance of fat. And we don't need to be weighing, tracking, measuring every single gram of protein, carbohydrate, and fat to be ensuring that we're getting enough of those things. We can eyeball it. And that's the beautiful thing about learning to trust our bodies. Diet culture has us believing that health is like this single lane highway. Health is like walking on a tightrope. And if we eat 10 grams of carbs over our, daily carb limit or daily macro limit that, some fitness coach has set for us, that we're going to spiral out of control and, we're like way overdoing it and we're doing damage and harm to our body. The reality is health can be accessed on such a wider spectrum. And I like to think of it, if we're going with the analogy that diet culture has us, believing that health is like walking on a tightrope and, a few grams more carbs or a few grams more fat or too little of this is like blowing it. That's ridiculous. Our bodies are designed to be so incredibly resilient and to be able to support us through so many different changes, whether it's dietary or environmental changes. Like, the body is incredible. The body is amazing at being able to navigate the different things that it undergoes and be able to be resilient and to overcome. And when we're getting so caught up in looking at health under such a microscope of a gram of carb or a gram of fat or a gram of protein, like that just creates so much neuroticism. And I understand the hope and the goal and the desire and the good intention of wanting to take care of our health by paying more attention to it and paying more attention to our nutrition and getting more specific with our nutrition. But let me ask you a question that I wish somebody would have just looked me straight in the eyes and gone, hey, Jess, I know your intention is to be healthy and to take care of yourself, but do you think weighing every gram of protein, carbohydrate, and fat, or mentally tallying it to the point of being completely neurotic and overwhelmed and stressed, and this taking up so much mental real estate, is actually healthy? Like, for real, is that healthy for you? mentally, emotionally, even physically, because of the amount of stress and the obsessive compulsive behaviors that you are so sucked into? Is this healthy? And the answer is no. And I knew that. And the reality is, so many of us get caught in disguising our intention with this disguise of we're doing it to be healthy. But the reality is, so much of what we're doing it out of fear of what our body will look like if we don't weigh, track, and measure everything. And I'm here to tell you that if you take that first step into fueling yourself adequately, eating consistently, eating regular meals throughout the day, and just eyeballing, do I have a protein? Do I have a carb source? Am I getting produce in most of my meals? Am I getting a good fat source in most of my meals? One, you're going to start to feel better. You're going to be able to think more clearly. We cannot make decisions, balanced, rational decisions with food when our brain is hungry, when our body is hungry, when we are restricting our food intake. When you just start to eat consistently and eat regularly and know that you are worthy of eating consistently and eating regularly, your mood starts to balance out. You start to see things in a more clear light. And again, if you're used to being in these cycles of restricting or not eating breakfast or going the whole entire day without eating and then intermittent fasting or whatever it is that is not regularly eating throughout the day, it can be a scary step to take. And it's scary when we're afraid of what's going to happen to our body. I know that is so scary in a world that worships this unrealistic, thin ideal. I know that's scary. I always want to acknowledge when I talk about body image challenges, I always want to acknowledge the reality that I exist with what is called thin privilege. My body is what is deemed, societally acceptable. And that is being thin in a culture, in a society that worships thinness is a privilege. And I want to acknowledge that I don't have those lived experience of those in large or marginalized bodies, and I cannot pretend to understand the pain and the fear and the discomfort. But what I will do is I will continue to shed a light on what food freedom means. And I have such a strong conviction and belief that it's available regardless of your body shape and size, because I have had the incredible privilege and the incredible honor of working with individuals of all different size, shapes, and backgrounds over the last coming up on 5 years. I've had the honor of seeing women in all different body shapes and sizes heal their relationship with food and their body and be able to go on to pursue their fitness goals and do so from a fundamentally different place and make peace with their body, with where it's at. And it's been an incredible experience. But I do want to acknowledge that, there are amazing creators and there's amazing influencers and therapists and nutritionists and people working in the mental health space of all different body shapes and sizes. So if you ever struggle to relate to the message that I'm speaking, because maybe you see me on social media and you're like, man, how can she say this? Because, look at her. I just want to acknowledge that I understand that representation is really, really important. And I cannot pretend to understand the experience of, those, like I said, in larger marginalized bodies. It's not to say that I haven't dealt with my own body image insecurities. I have dealt with crippling insecurity and so many different periods of weight fluctuation. But still, the reality is, even within that, my size has been in the sphere of what, society deems quote unquote ideal, the thin ideal. And as a white, blonde haired, cis female, all of those things are privileges because I'm not also up against the judgments of society. So I do want to acknowledge that for all of my listeners who get me in videos or photos and find a hard time relating to me because of the way my body looks. My heart goes out to all of you. I truly love all of you, and I want you to feel safe in this space. And I want you to feel safe as you pursue food and body freedom and feel like there's representation for you. And I promise there is. There's so many incredible creators out there. But nonetheless, I will continue to speak this message because I am so passionate about it. And I believe that food and body freedom is available to you regardless of your body shape and size, and that health is available to you, and that health is independent of size. So anyways, little caveat there, but the very first step is making sure we're eating adequately, we're eating enough. And as you move into healing your relationship with food, weight fluctuations are entirely normal. In fact, weight fluctuations are an entirely normal part of being human. So if you've experienced weight fluctuations, again, welcome to being human. That is normal, but that is also normal when you're healing your relationship with food. And it's really, honestly, I promise, nothing to fear, because as we continue to go through what feels like often the messy middle, where we're beginning to give ourselves more permission to eat and maybe eat more regularly than we're used to, and eat more consistently and eat more adequately. And it, especially for coming from a history of restriction, if our weight is fluctuating, or we are craving more highly palatable foods, or we are eating in such a way that doesn't feel necessarily the most balanced, I want you to know the only way for food to lose its allure and its kind of like dark magic, where it feels like it's pulling you in and, it feels very impulsive. In order for food to lose that sensation, we have to begin exposing ourselves to food and giving ourselves permission to enjoy foods that were maybe formerly off limits. And the only way to get to the other side, where food is just food and it doesn't have this kind of toxic pull, is to go through the messy middle. And so if you've started your journey of healing and you feel like it's a little messy, welcome to being exactly where you should be. Like, this is healing. It is messy. But as you continue to go through it, I promise it gets more balanced. It gets easier. Food comes off of this pedestal, and food is still amazing. I still love food. I still enjoy and indulge, but it doesn't have this toxic pull where it's like, it's like I think about it and I obsess about it, and it's the first thing I think of when I wake up in the morning, along with my weight. Like, it's not like that anymore. And I promise there's a way out of the obsessive compulsive thinking about food and stressing about food and stressing about your body, but you have to go through it. And that is messy. And that looks like maybe not eating the most balanced, and all of that is entirely okay. And honestly, what I think makes it feel more and more okay is when you have a clearer picture of the next steps. Because when you begin to pursue intuitive eating or healing your relationship with food, and it all feels kind of overwhelming and it all feels like a lot, and then you're starting to give yourself permission to eat more regularly, or if you have been eating, giving yourself unconditional permission to eat and to eat more consistently and to eat more regularly, but you don't know the next steps, or you don't know how to graduate from kind of a beginner level understanding of intuitive eating into finding more balance and regulating your nervous system and developing emotional coping skills and kind of having all of those puzzle pieces come together. I think that's when it feels scary, and that's when we want to retreat back to the things that felt more grounding, but ultimately are kind of toxic, like counting calories and obsessing over macros. So having a clear picture of how all these different puzzle pieces work together can be very supportive and very useful. And that's my goal with the podcast. That's my goal with the Food Freedom Online program, is I just want to demystify each of the puzzle pieces and each of the steps required, because I think having a clear picture feels so good to the soul, and it feels hopeful. And I just want you to know that there is so much hope available to you. And I want to give a shout out to a comment that I received, because I just want to thank you guys for engaging with my content and leaving reviews and just being a part of when I put out information. When you share that it is impacting you in one way or another, it means so much to me. I'm just going to tell you straight up, I am a words of affirmation gal. And so when I read those reviews that you leave on the podcast, or you send me a DM, or you shoot me an email or a message, it really does mean a lot, because my intention is to serve. My intention is to help you take those steps, because honestly, I'm doing in a selfish way, I'm doing this for my former self, the Jessie who really needed it and didn't have it. This is who I'm doing it for. And when I hear that it's impacting you, it just means so much. So I want to take a second to read this comment that I got on my Instagram. It says, just listen to the new episode and it's so powerful and beneficial, like everything else you share. I felt so hopeless until I found you, your podcast, and the Food Freedom Online program. Even on the days I binge, I no longer get into that hopeless mindset anymore because of everything you've shared. Thank you for shining a light in the binge eating community that's been so easily dismissed by doctors and therapists more often often than not. Thank you so much for the sweet comment. Honestly means the world to me. And thank you for being a listener of the podcast. I hope that you have the courage today to take that first step and prioritize eating consistently, eating regular meals, eating often. It is necessary for us regulating and supporting our nervous system, supporting hormone regulation, supporting mood, supporting energy. And the more consistently and the more regularly that we're eating, we're going to be able to think clear. If you're wanting a step-by-step solution, a step-by-step game plan for the entire healing journey and what's involved and what's entailed, again, not rocket science, but it is multidimensional. I would be so honored to work with you and be a part of your process. Be so honored to have you inside of the Food Freedom Online program. You can check out all of the details by going to www.foodfreedomonlineprogram.com. I'll leave the link in the show notes, but all of the details will be there for you. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and I will see you in the next episode. Bye for now.